This is the Evolution Rage 5S table saw that I've had for many years, and I stand by the fact that this is the best budget table saw under £500, but it now has some competition, the R255TBL and TBL Plus, and in this video I'm going to show you some of the great features on this saw and why it may have just knocked that off the top spot. So let's start with the item that is often the biggest frustration on budget table saws, the fence. This has now been upgraded with a rack and pinion fence, which basically means that it is synchronized at the front and the back whenever you are moving it. It is easy to adjust, slides freely, and just makes life much easier. The fence itself can also be released, put in different positions, just giving you a bit of extra cutting width when needed, or ultimately placed on the opposite side of the saw. The fence is multifunctional. It can be used as standard. This can be folded over, locked in position, which can be ideal for sliding thinner materials through, and also when this is extended out, that can be dropped down one more level to basically act as an extra shelf for your material when that slides out. So regular viewers may be wondering, why am I showing a table saw on my channel? And it's genuinely a good question because it could mess up my algorithm, but here is the reason why. Now, my very first table saw was an Evolution Fury 5S. Not the greatest of table saw, it was bought secondhand to do a job, but ultimately there was an issue with the table saw and I needed a replacement part for it. I emailed Evolution asking how much this part would cost. They just sent it out to me free of cost. This was before YouTube and everything, when I was just starting in woodwork. They just wanted to make sure that I was happy and my saw was working as it should be. Now, to me, that just screams a great level of customer service. So the reason I'm showing this saw on the channel is because Evolution looked after me, and ultimately I like Evolution. Quick fact, the original throat plate on the Rage 5S is basically what started my CNC business. It has quite a bit of flex in it, so I ended up machining my own out of MDF. This was on my original 3018 CNC machine, and I sold hundreds of these because people wanted them to replace the originals, which is why this next upgrade is so crucial. The throat plate is made from steel, giving your material much more support as it passes over it. This can obviously be removed by unlocking it at the front, and crucially there are 4 adjustment bolts, 2 at the front and 2 at the back. So you can ultimately raise this up or down or level it all up so that it is perfectly flush with your bed. Now, whilst this saw can be used as part of a workbench setup, it is what's typically known as a site saw. Ultimately, it can be moved around construction sites, put in the back of a van, generally a little bit more portable. And one key feature that you need on a site saw is a place to store all of your accessories, and that is exactly what this has. The sliding mitre comes in multiple parts. You've got the sliding base itself that can have the angle adjusted. We've got an adjustable backstop that allows to get close to the blade and give your material more support. You can bring in the clamp, which obviously holds your material down, but we can also bring this back here, lock it in position, release the lock underneath, and then you have a fully sliding mitre sled. And this is actually really smooth and really solid, and ultimately can minimise the need to build yourself a custom sled on this. Let's talk about the riving knife. Some people hate them, some people love them. Now, fortunately, straight out of the box, this has been very accurate with the alignment of the blade. It can actually be adjusted if you need to. And also, it comes out really easy. There is just a catch here that you simply slide up and it will just pop out of place and remove. It really is that simple, and obviously putting it back is also as easy. There's a little guidance pin for it to sit in, lock it back in place, and there you have it. I do find it a little bit bulky, but fortunately since they released this saw, they have released an additional riving knife that has a slightly lower profile to it. In comparison to other models, I have upgraded the dust outlet, and this is now 2¼ inches on the inner diameter, just meaning we can get all of those dust and chips out much quicker. Now, there are a couple of accessories that come with this. There is a hose that just basically points the dust down and away from you if you want to port it into something like a bucket sitting below the table saw. The other accessories they provide is a connector like this, so you can ultimately connect a hose to it, but you can also connect these tubes which then connect to the blade guard on top. Now, I have to say, I've never particularly found the blade guard dust extraction that efficient on these machines anyway, so I probably wouldn't use it, but they do provide everything to make that happen. For those of you familiar with budget table saws, a big frustration is often the sawdust falling out the bottom of the casing whilst you are cutting. I am very happy to say that this is now a much more sealed unit and the dust extraction is a lot more efficient. Now the other thing I should point out whilst I'm down here is they have also got a metal casing that connects to the motor. As I say, just a nice additional feature, meaning everything should be much more safer and secure. The metal casing that I just mentioned also means the mechanisms for adjusting the blade height and the blade angle run very smooth and easy. To adjust the blade height, you simply turn the handle at the front for the relevant direction, and similarly with the blade angle, you release the holder, rotate the wheel to the relevant angle that you need, and then put the clamp back on. It also holds its own weight, which stops the motor from swinging. Again, just much safer to operate. The accuracy of the angle stop straight out of the box, well, it's safe to say it's pretty accurate. The blade guard is obviously there for a reason, primarily safety, to protect you from the blade underneath. Now the build of the guard itself is pretty strong and sturdy. I do find the mounting of it just a little bit too flexible. Now as well as the pivot point here, it also provides you with a clamping bolt, so should you want to lock it in a certain position, you can do that as well. In the same way I used to make throat plates for these budget table saws, people also used to 3D print a lot of parts for them, including emergency stop buttons that were better than the originals. It's good that they are now taking this on board and improving the strength of these emergency stops like we have here. Now the blade that comes with the machine is a multi-purpose blade, and this is one of the things Evolution have become known for. Now this will cut through wood, plastic as well as metal. Now ultimately, if you are cutting one type of material such as wood, then definitely switch over to a dedicated wood blade because you will get much better results. The diameter of this blade is 255mm. The sliding out feed support is just one of those features that make this much easier, as I mentioned earlier, being a site saw. Obviously with a workbench it's slightly different, but it's just nice to have this option there to pull it out and ultimately support your material as you're feeding it through the saw. And then when you're not using it, it just goes back in position and locks in place with the bolts underneath. Now there are two versions of this saw, the TBL and the TBL Plus that I have with me here. The main difference is the TBL has a stronger motor, which is ideal if you're trying to cut through metal, as you've just got a little bit more grunt. It also has things like a soft start, which obviously eases the motor in more gently every time you fire it up. There are some differences with the accessories as well. For example, the TBL Plus has the outfeed table at the back. There's a full comparison on the Evolution website, but what I would say is if you can afford the TBL Plus, it is definitely worth the extra money. I will put links to both of them in the description area below. I should also highlight that both of the different models can come with or without the stand. Now at the point of recording this, I have made no adjustments to the fence or the measurements at all, and we can see with the fence flush up against the blade, that is how accurate it is out of the box. Now that is about 0.5 millimetre, maybe 1 millimetre off, but fortunately we can just adjust this bolt here and slide it over a fraction. But as I say, for being straight out of the box, that's pretty close. Now I'm not even sure if the camera will pick this up, but again, straight out of the box, the blade alignment in terms of the fence from the front to the back is also spot on. Now if you need to adjust this in terms of that alignment, there is a bolt underneath so you can swing it in or out as needed. Now I'm not going to dive into the world of dado stacks because it's always a contentious topic, but I will say that the shaft on this is pretty deep and it does look like it could take one. Now I'm not paid for or sponsored by Evolution, so I've got no issue talking about the competition. It's safe to say several saws looking very similar to this have all hit the market this year, and some of them are obviously cheaper, so why would you buy a more expensive saw when there are cheaper options out there? Well, it goes back to things like I was saying at the start of the video. Customer service, theirs is absolutely brilliant and they want to make sure that you are happy with your product. Things such as quality checks and quality assurance before it leaves the factory. They go to the extent of trying to get this as accurate as possible before it arrives at your doorstep. Now, usually cheaper alternatives are cheaper for a reason, so it is just something to factor in when you are looking at your budget table saws. So the Rage 5S is not obsolete, it still has its place and can obviously accommodate much wider pieces of wood. But if the width of the wood is less important, well, this may be taking the top step for you, the R255TBL or TBL Plus. It just has some really nice features, and especially the upgraded fence is just going to make things much easier to use. Obviously, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching, and final thanks as always goes to my patrons. I'll see you all on the next episode.